only way that we accomplish our work goals, these big audacious goals that we have as a team, is if every single person on our team is leveling up. There's not a greater accountability piece for my personal growth than being in a leadership position, right? And if I want to talk to people about accomplishing their dreams, I better be doing that myself.
You're listening to the Sherpa Leadership Podcast, your guide to climbing higher in life and leadership. I'm Reed Moore, and alongside Chase Williams, we're here to help you break through obstacles, scale your potential, and lead with greater clarity and purpose. Hey everybody, you're back on the Sherpa Leadership Podcast, where Chase and I are here to help you climb higher in life and leadership. And as promised, we have episode part 2 with Dane Espegard, an incredible guy, somebody who absolutely embodies this part of our leadership model, engaging and developing others. So looking forward to being back with Dane here, and I hope you guys enjoy.
So I want to dive into a little bit more of what you just said, which is give me some of the practical ways that a leader who's like, oh my gosh, like being focused on people's dreams and celebrating their progress toward them and helping them think abundantly is going to be super helpful for culture. But I'm unsure of the practical ways to connect supporting their dreams back to maybe the mission of the company or the quarterly sales goal. And you just shared a couple of examples. What are some other ways you're practically creating a conduit between this culture of achieving your dreams and like what the company needs to accomplish?
It's going to be different for every business. But one of the core beliefs for somebody to do this is that they have to have a belief that if Janet on my team or John or whoever, if they are living a more exceptional life and they are progressing in their personal life, they will perform better at work.
Yeah.
Yep.
Even if it means they may be out of the office one day, this whatever. But the idea of if they're on fire, there's no chance that they're not a better version of themselves here. So if somebody believes in that, they can wrap their head around some of the stuff that we're talking about. But we do, that, for instance, right at the end of the workshop. I think that's an easy time to do it. In the software, that the Dreams Vault, I forever just used Google Sheets, right? Everybody had their dreams list in there. I could view them. So I could go in at any time and say, I want to buy this person a dream. Instead of saying I want to send them a gift card to a nice restaurant, it was like, well, let me just see. Instead of $200 to a restaurant, let me find a dream. How cool would that be that I just buy him a dream? And that also keeps a buzz around the team. Everybody's excited about that. And so I just knew that so from 2021 to 2020 through 2023, we didn't have any software. So I would get paid to go and do workshops for teams. And I knew deep down, I'm like, this is great, but it's just going to be like a steroid shot in their arm for a couple of months, and then they're probably going to go back to doing what they're doing. That's normal human nature. There has to be some sort of integration tool. And so with the Dreams Vault, we had it created basically the way that I would want to use it as somebody who's doing the dreams culture. And so every Monday, a team leader gets emailed with any upcoming date. So in the software, the same thing that we would do if we were a great manager or coach when it comes to a sales goal. Right, we would ask the individual to break it down and say what needs to happen in order, right, to reverse engineer it. What needs to happen in order for you to hit this? Okay, cool. Let's put that on the schedule, and then we'd want to provide some accountability to say, hey, remember this week you're supposed to get this done. Did you get it done? Whatever somebody's style is. The same is true for a dream. So when they do the dream session of planning, they'll go in and they'll mark down, like, if I were to accomplish that dream by this date, what are the things I have to do? And it could be something as simple as research a location, buy a plane ticket, book a hotel. But what the system asks them to do is to put in their target dates of when they'd like to accomplish it. Well, every week, the CEO, team leader, whoever the company wants to have, will receive an email of any upcoming target date in the next 7 days. So every Monday I get an email. Sometimes there's nothing. It's just, hey, you have no upcoming dates for your team. But other weeks it'll be, hey, here are 5 dates of people on your team that are supposed to do something this week. And then for me, it allows me to do whatever I want. I can call the person. I often will just send a text and say, hey, Reed, I saw that you're signing up. You're supposed to be signing up for that race this week. Super excited for you. Whatever, something like that. That's just a positive nudge. And that seems to do the trick for a lot of it. You also can set up where, I'll get a notification if somebody accomplishes a dream on my team. So it could be a Thursday night at midnight and somebody's in there in the software and they mark down that they completed a dream. They can put a photo in there to chronicle it. And then I wake up Friday morning with an email that says, so Johnny on your team accomplished a dream. And then I can choose to shout them out on Slack channel or something else. I can choose to wait until our next all hands meeting to share. But those are some ways to do it. My Christmas gift shopping, I'll typically just grab a bottle of wine and sit at my computer and pick out things on people's dreams list. And it's hilarious. I try and pick really weird ones that they weren't going to spend money on for themselves. So like this winter, I think I bought 3, and I try and do the health category as much as possible. So this year I bought 3 sessions of acupuncture, 2 sessions of colonics, like colon hydrotherapy.
Dream.
I had, I think I had 2 sessions of a float tank thing. So it's a lot of like, one guy got a cat tower because he had that on his list. He wanted to, so I went on Amazon, found the biggest cat tower you could have. So like the gifts that they get are just everybody talks about them because they're super weird. But it's, it's fun. It's way more enjoyable than me buying the same thing for everybody every single year.
I'm buying you a colonic.
Yeah. I'll have to have some intentional thought around that.
Yes. So let me ask you a different question. How do you deal with people that you need to exit out of your culture, knowing that a really good, positive culture is it's a healthy environment, and sometimes that means removing people or maybe releasing them to their dreams being fulfilled elsewhere and everywhere in between. How do you navigate that?
I haven't had too many challenges with that. And I think part of it comes from when we're using the dreams culture, they know that I actually am caring about them as an individual. So I can't say that there's been a time that I've had to abruptly ask somebody to leave the team. In other words, there was writing on the wall, right? There was a long off ramp before it happened, performance slipping, they're not being the best selves, whatever. And so typically in those opportunities, I'll just have proactive conversations to say, hey, I've noticed the last X amount of time, it doesn't seem like you've been, 100% engaged. And that could be here. And again, if you're not engaged here, there's no chance that you're, I don't know what you'd be doing to be able to accomplish the dreams and stuff that you're doing. It doesn't seem like you're moving yourself forward. And so one of the things that I say often is, look, I want all of you on our team to be here for a very long time, as long as you're really excited and you're progressing while you're here. If this isn't serving you anymore, I would love for you to go somewhere else where you're engaged and on fire. And I mean that. And I think one of the things that it's hard to flip if somebody has a scarcity mindset with their people. But I think a lot of people have the mindset of like, ooh, I can't lose them, right? And in my mind, it's like, I'm going to lose everybody. Everybody on my team is temporary. At some point, they're going to leave. They could do so well that they leave, right? That they retire. And I think that's great. But the mentality of this is, I would rather have somebody thriving and leave to a bigger thing than just camping out and being less than themselves and then me feeling good that they're not going to get poached, right? I use this as an extreme example, but my wife and I in our vows, we took out till death do us part because we're like, well, no, if we don't want it just to be baked into no matter what. It's like, no, we want to continue to have to date each other, right? And I want if there's no till death do us part, it's like, well, I have to make sure that I continue courting this person. And it's the same for if I'm trying to get great talent to my team, I'm probably going to roll out the red carpet for them, but I should never stop that.
Yeah.
Right. It shouldn't be different once they get on the team versus when I'm recruiting them. And so for me, I do that by continually trying to level them up, reach their goals, their dreams. And if they can no longer do that here, if they've hit a ceiling here, I would love for them to go somewhere else because they're going to be the best advocate for our team, right? In terms of, and I just kind of believe in the paying it forward concept when it comes to that.
Yeah. And my thought is this is such a powerful accountability tool, right? Or you could call it leadership tool, because if I can layer in holding someone accountable to performance at work on top of a foundation of what they care about the most, their dreams, then I can truly either help someone move forward or help them see that lack of performance here is keeping them from accomplishing their dreams. That's what I hear you saying. And I think sometimes leaders are challenged with accountability because they have this idea that this person's going to care so much about the thing that we sell or the mission that we have as a company. Not that that's unimportant, but they're never going to, let me not say never. They're rarely going to care about that thing more than they care about their own dreams. So if I can constantly be pointing them back to, hey, how's your performance, serving these dreams as an example, then not only am I re-demonstrating that I care all the time, but I'm actually helping them how to figure out how to connect the two in a way that's super meaningful to them.
That's really good.
And we've all had, I'm sure every listener can think of some leader that poured into them. And you could tell like they really just wanted me to excel. And it could be a leader from 15 years ago. But when that happens, we also ultimately care about what they're building because it feels phenomenal to have somebody pour into us. And so that's where I always go back to where it's like, look, the mission, I share a very vivid vision of what we are building within our team. And it's all over. And we talk about it nonstop. But the core of it still is the only way that happens is if everybody on my team is leveling up. And this is, and the reason I can say this smoothly is because I say it every single month at our hands-on meeting where it's our whole team. They hear me say the exact same thing every single month. And it's that the only way that we accomplish our work goals, these big audacious goals that we have as a team, is if every single person on our team is leveling up. So it is about you as an individual. And if you're slipping, we care about that because we want you to be your best version. And I also find for myself, it's like, man, there's not a greater accountability piece for my personal growth than being in a leadership position. Right. And if I want to talk to people about accomplishing their dreams, I better be doing that myself. If I want people to be getting healthier, I better be doing that myself. Right. And so just like kids are such a great accountability, right, to say, oh, now there's eyes on me all the time. I was reading through your guys' leadership model and the whole, like, I say this line all the time, which is, lessons are far more often caught than they are taught.
Sure.
Right. And you guys have that as part of your ethos. And I think that's totally true when it comes to the dreams.
So one of the things that you said that just piqued my interest is, you're saying these things all the time. And one of the challenges that a lot of leaders have is maybe you could say the making peace with the repetition of, I'm not necessarily going to say a lot of different or differing things, but I'm going to say the same things over and over and over. And by the time I'm really sick of saying it, I'm going to say it another 1,000 times. And that actually is an element of good leadership. When in your leadership journey did you make peace with that? Or is that just something you've always done?
I don't think that I always did it. I think, and I don't know that I ever had to make peace with it. Let me think this through. I think it was more just as I started doing it more, I started recognizing that, oh, people are, buying into this, or they're starting to be able to say it back to me. I also was fortunate in the Cutco world. There's so many great leaders. And it is a business that's built on pouring into personal development of the young people. And so I was very fortunate to have some really great examples of leaders when I was in my 18 to 22-year-old range. And so I think that, much of that I got from other people of, oh, they're saying the same thing over and over again. And I was taught early when I started learning how to run sales trainings to say things 3 times. Right. And the idea of when, they hear it, they understand it, and now they can repeat it. Right. So, and so I think it kind of stemmed from that. And then I used to have an elusive culture. Right. And what that means is it'd be kind of like the flavor of the month, where I'd read a personal growth book and I'm like, I'm going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Right. And then the next month it'd be something else, be like, I'm going to talk about that. And then as I settled on the dream stuff, I was, okay, this has to be in every thread of what we do if I really want it to take hold.
Love it.
So good.
Yeah. That's really good. And it's interesting because the way I heard that was you learned that from modeling, and then you learned that from seeing that it was effective. And you're like, oh, this is actually working. I think I'll do more of this thing that works.
Yep.
Love it. When you look at your leadership, what are the areas that have been a challenge for you personally?
For me, delegation. And I think everybody's wired differently. I am a go-getter. I forever have prided myself on the amount of hours that I work and, nobody's going to be able to do it on my team as well as I can. And so there was a lot of beliefs that weren't necessarily on the surface, right? I wasn't necessarily self-aware of them, but that through doing a bunch of work, kind of figured out like, oh, this is what's led to these things. So for me, it was delegation, and there was multiple layers to it. So I'd say I went through one stage of that in my like mid-20s, where I got promoted to run a division, which means I just had more territory to oversee, more individuals to oversee. So there was a kind of a forced maturation process during that, where I was like, okay, well, now I have to level up because I just don't have the hours to do all of it. And then it took me another almost 8 years, I'd say, in that role to reach the second kind of coming of that. And that also happened for me around the time I had kids. And so, it was kind of up to that point when I was, married and dating my now wife, I always kind of bought into like, well, no, I'm sorry, I'm working a lot, but I have to. I bought my own lie with that of like, well, it's got to be this, because that's what it had always been for me. And then there wasn't as many examples of people at the level of success that I aspired to have, having a whole bunch of kids. So that's where I kind of maybe ran out of the examples to look and find. And then through a lot of, mistakes and struggles and tough conversations and realizing, hey, if I do this, I'm going to have another fight with my wife. So if I could maybe figure out how to not do this and still get the result that I want. And, so it wasn't necessarily clean in terms of how it happened. But I think that next wave, having kids, it kind of forced the necessity of, well, I don't want to be that dad. And so I've got to figure out how I can start leveling up. And then as I started on that second quest, I think, of the delegation stuff, things started to click faster. And then at that time, I was stepping out a little bit more of the, in our direct sales world, as you achieve more, there's this, you become somewhat of a celebrity within the business. Mm-hmm. And at first that's really nice, right? And you like that. And then after a while, it's like, okay, I don't need that anymore. As I started to step out, I started retaining even more of my top talent. And I realized, oh, there's only so much oxygen in the room. I have a big personality. And so when I was doing everything, I was losing sometimes my 5-star recruit when they graduate from college. And I think for them, it was, well, this is his, and I want to be the star somewhere. And so like right now, I'm behind the scenes in a whole lot of stuff. I have a larger team than I've ever had. Our production is larger than it's ever been. And I work less than I ever have. And it's not because I'm just relaxing. It's because I have so many great leaders that it wouldn't be right for me to step in front of them to do those things. It's empowering those people to step in. So for me, I'd say delegation was probably the biggest.
Well, it's amazing. And the reason I asked that, right, is on this line of thinking about, leaders need to be able to engage and develop others. One of the things that can really happen is our, individual performance and results, how we start this whole thing, can ultimately actually be something that disengages or keeps other people from developing. And it sounds like maybe through the school of hard knocks, you got to a place to where you're leveling up and continuing to do that at a high level too.
Yeah, I think that was for sure it. And for part of my, I'd say the shift that I made leveling up 5-6 years ago was joining some other groups that were non-industry specific. So for me, it was like joining Front Row Dads and being around a bunch of just butt kicking dudes that were not in the Cutco world. And, starting to learn some things from them to say, oh, that's really interesting. And then being around another mastermind lifestyle investor with Justin Donald, and even a kind of like the guys in that group, men and women, are, a whole nother level of success. And so those things for me, being around those groups, also shed some light on more examples for me of, oh, that's a totally different way of living, or that's a different way of doing business. And so I think most people show me an example, and it's a lot easier for me to learn it than hear a concept. And I'm for sure that way. So I think that me branching out and joining some groups like that made a difference.
I love it. That's awesome.
Man. So Dane, well, maybe the last question, maybe not. We'll see how it goes. But I'd love to ask you, when you look out onto the horizon of your leadership journey, maybe like the next thing that you're excited about in your leadership, what is that thing either that you're working on or you feel most excited about at this phase?
Great question. So there's a couple. One of them is Cutco specific, and that is I have some young up and comers that are so wildly talented that it has been very enjoyable for me to see them move to their next step, to their next level. And so I'm really excited. I have some that are getting promoted to the same position that I'm at, and I'm really excited about that, of having created some peers, if you will, and then also helping bend the curve on things that took me 10 years in that role to figure out, for them to do a lot faster. So I'm really excited about that. And then the thing that gets me most excited is making a larger impact with the dreams concept. I didn't know what it was going to be when I launched the book at first. And then when the software came out, I was like, this is what I had dreamt of, but I'm so software inept that, I didn't know how long it was going to take me to get something created. And so for me, it's been just an awesome journey. We are onboarding 2 new clients here in April to the software. And so it's been all very organic thus far. And it's exciting for me to think about a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road where we've got 100 plus companies that are using the software. And there's a lot of neat things that I'm excited to do with it. And it'll be a different, I'm also trying to build a business where I'm not the brand. And I know that'll be somewhat of a challenge, because anybody that I've met with is like, well, you got to go do this. You got to do this. I'm like, but that's going to lead to the brand being me. And I want the brand to be dreams. I want it to be just, hey, that concept makes sense. We don't need to hire him. We could just do this ourselves and get content from us. And I just, this year in our software, there's this little ticker that has how many dreams have been inputted into the system. And there's 39,000 or 40,000 that are in there right now. And so I get really excited about when it hits 100,000 and 200,000. We're starting to roll out a dream scholarship. So within the companies that are using it, I'm picking a dream once a month from a random person in a random company, and we're just granting that dream. And so stuff like that is really exciting for me. And then I've been also rolling this out for some families through Front Row Dads. So dreaming with your kids. And so there's a ton of, I'm excited about the different directions that this could go in without being married to any of the end games with it.
I love it. I love how much it engages and develops people. Like it's just in my mind, Dane, like this, there's so much about this is just the heart of leadership that we want our listeners to hear. So they can get your book. I know they can get your book, Dream Machine, on Amazon. Where is there a better place for them to go? And then also, where can they go to get your software? Like, what's the path for listeners to be able to engage in this?
So they can go to my website's just daneespegard.com, but the website that has the software, it's called thedreamsvault.com. And there's a spot where they can see a little demo of the software and stuff as well, and they can reach out to us on there. But I think that's, in terms of buying the book, Amazon's fine for that. There's not necessarily a better spot for that.
Awesome.
But yeah, the Dreams Vault is where they can see the software in action.
Amazing. Well, we'll push this stuff out because we just think the world of it, think the world of you. And man, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to share with all the leaders that are listening here. You're a phenomenal leader. Obviously, you're building people, building lives, doing what leaders do. And we just appreciate you sharing your time.
Well, I thank you guys for giving me the platform. This was an awesome conversation, and looking forward to hopefully meeting up with you guys in person when we bring the RV through.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. All right. You want to take us home?
Yeah. Thanks, Dane. We appreciate you being here. If you enjoyed this episode of the Sherpa Leadership Podcast, please subscribe, share it with another leader. You can get more resources at sherpaconsultinggroup.com. Remember that leadership is a journey. Every step you take matters. Keep climbing. We'll see you next time.
Take care, everybody.